am sought of them that ask not for me. I am found of them that sought me not. I said, behold me, unto a nation that was not called by my name. I have spread out my hands all the day to a rebellious people, which walked in a way that was not good after their own thoughts, of people that provoke me to anger continually to my face, that sacrifice in God hymns and burn incense upon altars of brick, which remain among the graves, which lodge in the monuments, which eat swine's flesh and the broth of abominations.
And there we go, reconnected. Okay, hopefully it'll be good enough. We're on chapter 32, verse 9. But a slight change of subject, not, in the same vein, talking about we've gone from God's restoration of his kingdom to looking back, like it wouldn't have much to do with it may have something to do with the way people see themselves politically in the modern era, but the language, the way we use liberal today is not the way they would use it there. But there is a relationship, because obviously the liberality churl was, as far as in the King James, as far as the Hebrew, I believe it was churl, a problematic word, or vile person, whatever. It doesn't matter, because it's obvious by what their sins are that what we're talking about. All right, I want to go to the next. I really want to move on. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. Many days and years shall ye be troubled, ye careless women. For the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. Be troubled, ye careless ones. Okay. Let's just read the rest of the chapter. And my people shall dwell in a peaceable habitation, and in sure dwellings, and in quiet resting places. When it shall hail, coming down in the forest, and the city shall be low in a low place. Blessed are ye that sow besides all waters, that send forth thither the feet of the ox. I have nothing to say about it now, and we're going to have to look into that verse. Because I've never, it's always been a bit confusing, right? Not confusing. It's like, what is this symbolism? You careless daughters. Without a care. Living life easy. All the drudgery of life taken away. I was commenting to, I forgot who exactly, family members, about, no, it wasn't, who was I talking? Whatever, it doesn't matter. You think about all the ways technology has freed women up, as far as from it was called women's work because it's like someone has to do these things. Yes, cleaning, cooking, laundry, even if it's for yourself. But if you're doing that all for yourself, you have precious little time to dedicate to specializing in providing a lot of other things. And that's the general cooperative framework that men and women have developed over thousands of years. It's like there was for the home, the women were kind of there, kind of running it, right? The woman, even in the Bible, the book of Proverbs, it's clear that the man is the head of the home, but the woman is the sort of the runner of it in some ways, in many ways, because he is here and there and everywhere, while she is maintaining her house and her children, especially if there are children. At least that's, one, that is certainly a very workable form of cooperation between men and women that has been successful time and time again in marriage. There's a kind of role taking. Prosperous, this increases, but never so much as now. I mean, not just here, all over the world. I remember watching some sort of documentary just to how important electricity is for women, as far as in the third world, it's like electricity is what keeps them from being able to, I mean, it is, no running water, because running water usually has something to do with electricity. But I mean, but things like that, running water, so you don't have to fetch water every day, because that's what people do. Like if you don't have running water, there's a job where you got to get water every day for the household. Has to be gotten. Maybe the man has to go up, but the woman has to wait for it. I mean, she needs it brought in. It doesn't just. And the thing is, while in America people can like talk about, oh, everything should be equal or whatever, and they should, it should all be the same. The reality is, in the poor parts of the world, women work all day just doing the drudgery, as it's known, of housework, laundry, all these back-breaking labor, working your fingers to the bone type stuff. Traditional work still goes on. But we have technology, we have electricity, we have electric washing machines, electric dishwashers, we have running water, hot and cold. We have toilets in the house, which is nice, especially because it takes the waste away from the house, There are so many modern conveniences that allow for things. On top of that, you have the welfare state. The welfare state makes it advantageous for women, if they have children, to not have a husband. Or certainly makes it entirely, it makes it so that they are not given like a... It used to be if you were a woman with no husband and children, it was like, when it talks about the fatherless and the widows, it's because the fatherless and the widows, that's women whose husbands have died and they still have children. That's one of the most vulnerable groups of people historically. I mean, that the women and children with no husband. And so it's natural that people would want to take care of that. But in the byproduct of taking care of that is that it's provided a system whereby men, for many of these women, become unnecessary. In fact, you get a penalty if you have a husband, as far as you lose benefits, of course, because now you have a husband. You don't need those benefits anymore. But also they don't understand what that does. And that has been a driver of divorce, because not only does it provide for people who are destitute, but people who are in pretty good shape, And so we have a tremendous amount of ease. From the top, when you talk about wealthy people, they have a lot of ease. And you go down to the bottom, even at the lowest tiers of our society, there is a lot of leisure, there's a lot of ease, there's a lot of lack of care, because things are taken care of. I mean, you don't even consider like all the modern conveniences, like grocery stores, ordering food on the phone, all that stuff. And it causes a kind of complacency and a carelessness, a thoughtlessness. And people got kind of, when the pandemic hit and all those store shelves sort of emptied, people got a glimpse of like, I might decide to do things and okay, I got a bunch of money now, I'm going to prepare for what I think might be coming. And then what? Get it totally wrong and look like a jackass. Probably. I don't know what's coming. Only the Lord knows. And if he tells me, I guarantee you, I will tell you. So listen up, you who have ease. And everyone in this country has ease. Even, I work, I feel like I'm busy constantly, but I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm not. It's just, for me, I'm relatively busier than I've ever been, in my easy life, where, where the laundry comes clean at the hands of a robot, essentially. Will not come. Because, I was like, well, there you go. But that's not the real harvest we're talking about, right? This would be more like, another way I would look at it is, I remember when I was in the 90s, when I was like 20 and such, when I was getting married, and when I was also newly zealous. they were all really pumping up for revival. They thought, well, we got to have a revival. Or people were calling for it. They wanted a revival, a revival, a revival. And I remember thinking, it's not coming. I was thinking an apostasy is coming. And it is. But, I mean, there could be a revival. Well, yeah, I'd like to see a revival. I'd like to see a revival and even to spark one. I mean, that's good. But, that's what they thought was coming, but it didn't come. Not what they thought was coming. That's what many hoped for, But there was no revival of any kind. If anything, subsequent to that came the new atheists, who whatever effect they had. Atheism got a bigger foothold, essentially. So they didn't do a very good job. And I to me, it was like, I don't even know how you start with this revival thing. How do and it is a complicated thing. But when I thought of gathering's not coming. That's the kind of thing. It's like where we go and one sows, another reaps, right? So I sow a few words to this person and then sprinkle a little blessing from God, and then a year down the road, or become zealous for the faith or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what they want. I think it's sort of new zeal, generally, people, because there are lots of Christians in the country. You know what I mean? But we're not all of the same mind. That's the thing. We're not all of the same mind. So you think people on the other side of the political aisle aren't Christians? They are. We're not all of the same mind. But of the same mind in this, we are. We're all. I mean, maybe not just at this moment, people are angered and stuff about the continuing, like the pandemic is over, but apparently some people want to just milk it for everything they've got. Okay, so it does seem like we're not exactly in an easy time, but our society generally still has lots of ease. Even in this I feel embarrassed for our generation. I feel embarrassed. I feel embarrassed to be part of this generation, because the herd panicked, and all that they did. It's embarrassing. It is just, I'm embarrassed of our generation as far as human beings go. I mean, it is just, I don't know, the degree, just to that degree. I'm embarrassed for our generation. All of us who have to suffer with it also. I'm not just saying this, I stand alone, one who don't, I'm just saying, that's the feeling I get for us. I'm embarrassed for us, because so many of us, it's such a small provocation. We are the elephant who leaped at a mouse. It's absolutely ridiculous. 500,000 dead or whatever. I've stopped counting at 500,000 because I don't know. 1 million dead, in a year. Whatever. It's like, that's not the plague. You understand, we're talking about a planet of 7 billion. And it's just like, and as far as the children should be worried about it right now, the flu is more dangerous to children than that stupid COVID-19 nonsense. And they're talking about vaccinating them and making them wear masks. Why don't you require them to get the flu vaccine? Why don't you require them to wear a mask before the pandemic? Because the flu does as much damage as COVID does to kids. Absolutely ridiculous. And some of these experimental vaccines, God only knows what the damage that will do. And you want to force it on children? Over my dead body, you will. Over my dead body. I say force. You start getting force. You can offer all the incentives you want. I don't care. You can urge and plead and yell and scream and kick. And you can also go to hell. All right. So, the gatherings, refers generally, really, is it talking about revival and gathering people back into church, or the apostasy? I mean, is it referring to apostasy, or is it referring to or a lack of revival? No, but in a sense, because it's the system on which they're depending for their ease and for their, the reason they have not a care. That's the idea of careless. They have not a care. The mechanism, the vintage, the productivity, the pleasant fields, the breasts. I mean, it's all these things, these providing things. That's why it says these things. It goes teats, pleasant fields, fruitful vine. All images of provision, of potential and all that. The things that bring forth all the ease. The breasts that suckle the children. When the land is quiet, women bear children and they raise them up. But when things are all chaotic, people would probably rather avoid having children. They still get pregnant and do, though. It says tremble. You should tremble. What does that mean for us? The gathering shall not come. In many days and years. What it means is of course, literally for them, the Assyrians would come, destroy the prosperity which had caused their ease, destroy their cities, carry people away captive. Shouting to cease. Therefore, my bowels shall cry for thee, Moab. But similar idea. The vine symbolizes a lot of time. I remember we had in chapter 5. I have my well-beloved hath a vineyard in a very fruitful hill. Jesus said, "I am the true vine." It has a symbolic meaning because vines produce wine, and it's kind of like a symbol of spiritual, religious things, but also, I don't know. That's what I was taught, that it sort of represents some but I think it represents more than just their religious estate, or I don't know what exactly. See, that confuses me when I try to think about it like that, because the raw symbology of the vine bringing forth the fruit. Every branch that brings forth fruit, he prunes that it should bring forth more. From I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman in the Gospel of John. What is that, chapter 15? I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Okay, so, that idea that we receive, Jesus is the true vine because we receive our blessings from him. And he feeds, and we are fed of God through him. And he is, and the God, every branch in me that bears not fruit, he takes away. But the ones that he prunes. So he does a similar activity to ones. He cuts and prunes and stuff like that to bring forth the what Christ is building. His God's kingdom. I am the true vine. And so their vine, and a vine is also an interesting thing because like time, it crawls. If you ever watch vines, they go and they move in like a line and sort of a meandering path. And over time, it grows into something like a kingdom, like God's kingdom. And I think maybe it's some sort of kingdom reference. Well, because it is quite in the context of upon the land of my people are going to come up briars and thorns instead of this vintage. A lot, he has been saying throughout Isaiah that he's going to take their pleasant fields and all the goodly things that they depend on and turn them into briars and thorns, meaning they're going to go wild. They're not going to be cultivated anymore. Is it not yet a very little while, and Lebanon shall be turned into a fruitful field, and the fruitful field shall be turned into a forest, he had said in chapter 29. So they should be troubled and tremble instead, because these things are failing. But instead they're at ease. You should be troubled. Gird sackcloth upon your loins. Girding of sackcloth was something they did traditionally as a sign of mourning. They would put on the clothes of mourning, and that's what it means. Get dressed up like you're going to a funeral. You know what I mean? Mourn, weep. You have to. Your external behavior should match what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, but they don't, but they're at ease. They don't see what's happening. It's just like Jesus said, they ate and drank and married and gave in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark and the flood took them all away. You know, and that's what happens here. They're careless, they're at ease until the day. But they should weep and mourn. You know, in that day the Lord had called to weeping and to mourning, to girding with sackcloth. But behold, joy and gladness, singing. Let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we shall die. People don't put their hope in God. They put their trust in chariots, and then when they get down to the last minute, you know, they talk about foxhole believers and all that. Not always. These are not songs. These are symbols of plenty and provision. You know, the breasts provide the feeding for the babies. And that's, why is it put that way? They shall lament for the breasts because the pleasant fields and the fruitful vine. Because the things which fill them up for the children, like, you know, they're going to wither and go away. How are you going to feed your children? How are you going to feed your children, women, when it's all taken away? You know, when they take it all away, how shall you feed your children? Are you going to feed them from thorns and briars? All the land of my people shall come up thorns and briars, yet upon all houses of joy in the joyous city. It's more than just literal, too. It's, you know, I mean, there's like it's something greater is being said. Because they're not all, he will not destroy them all. Obviously, because there's got to be witnesses to this. They have to see it. The pleasant fields turn into thorns and briars. The palace is forsaken. I mean, like, the multitude of the city shall be left. The forts and towers shall be for dens forever. You know, we see this kind of symbolism gets into movies. Where you see the cities, right? I mean, you've seen a movie at some point where you saw a city that was abandoned. Everyone loves seeing that. I don't know, because it sort of gratifies us on some level, I guess. I don't know, maybe we're all secretly misanthropic. We all hate people. I don't know. I don't think I hate people. I kind of, there's another city. But, the truth is, we know that a lot of what our cities represent is not good. There's a lot of evil that goes down in those cities. And the thing is, because they hearken not to God, and because they trust in the strength of their cities and the might of their, infrastructure. And that's the truth. We trust, our infrastructure. Everyone knows our crumbling infrastructure, but it's like, oh yeah, we trust it's all going to hold together. Don't worry about it. Just borrow a little more money and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay. When people, when you're careless and foolish, you're just begging for something bad to happen. That's the thing. It's like, I don't need to be a prophet to tell you something bad is potentially, that we are courting disaster, as they say. Courting it, like, hey, disaster, would you like to get married? Come on, let's get married, disaster. That's courting disaster. Yeah, they're just looking for trouble. Why? By being foolishly careless. Upon the land of my people shall come up the house of the city. Palaces shall be forsaken. The multitude of the city shall be left. Forts and towers for dens forever. I like that. The forts and towers shall be for dens forever. That's not really literal. You know what I mean? Because the kingdom was restored. But it's like I said, like with eternal torment, that idea. That's us not understanding apocalyptic literature the way it's written. Like, you got to think about it. The forts and towers that were shall be, they are dens. They become the dwelling place of foxes and such. A pasture of flocks, a joy of wild asses. It's like those areas that were once Israel are now inhabited with modern people. Many of those old towns are full up again. You know what I mean? But the world that these women knew perished. You know what I mean? And it no longer would ever be. It will not be forever. Like, oh, the pleasure remembered. They don't. Nobody remembers all their easy. All the time. When people have ease. Like, I remember growing up discovering like news magazine shows that such a thing existed. Where like a current affair. They talk about celebrity gossip and other stuff, weird stuff. Like those sleazy afternoon shows they used to have. They probably still have them, where they have people come out and hit each other with chairs or whatever. Like, you slept with my boyfriend, and you're pregnant with my sister's friend, and whatever. You know what I mean? Like that kind of weird stuff. But all that petty, we have all this time and leisure, and we get into this petty crap where people are like, you said this, and you said and like all the gossip and stuff. People have lots of free time to gossip and talk about this and that because they don't have, they have so much ease. They don't have the need. They don't have all the demands that keep them busy. Like they say, idle hands are the devil's workshop. I think that's quite true because the busier I am, other than potentially things like frustration and anger that come from being overloaded, as far as many other sins are sort of cast out the door because you're too busy for it. And it's good to keep busy, to be working. But that's the thing, when people have too much time on their hands, they get into mischief. And that's what, it is a, whatever. But I wanted more to just emphasize, like the dens forever. The Hebrew word, there's probably the olam, which is usually the word they use for that. Oh, I'm on 60. That's because I didn't mean 65. That's because I was taking it from the music there. Hold on. Let's bring this up. Here we have the... Come on. Yeah, sorry about that. Looks weird, doesn't it? Okay. Down here in verse 17. Oh, 16, 14. Yeah. Forever. Olam. For. Ad olam. Ad here, this word, you can't see it, but I'll show it to you. And that one I'll show it to you. For is ad. As far as, even to, up to, until, while. And ever as olam. Long duration. Antiquity, futurity. You see, they don't choose eternity. Because passages like this, it's obviously not meant eternal for eternity. But what it means is like, you'll never see it. The people concerned, all they'll know is that it was destroyed forever. Their life that they were living, gone forever. Never again. Like the ease they had was gone. The world they lived in, destroyed. Everything that depended on, evaporated. So for ad, a preposition, right, or a conjunction. I just want to look down at Dr. Strong. It probably occurs 1,260 times. So a very common Hebrew word. So I probably know just how to use it. Probably the same as ad, used as a preposition, afar or as long. So it's like unto or as far as olam. Now olam, long duration, antiquity, futurity. Well, they move the Strongs up there. That's, well, sort of. His actual definition from the Concordance. It's funny they always stick that. Like I'm getting like I'm glad to see my stream is moving, but for some reason, whatever. But we got enough. Olam is I remember looking into it when I was a new student, when I was a young. And that's the definition is true. It's kind of like, it's ambiguous. It does not mean like everlasting or eternal, but it does refer to that kind of thing. I mean, it does refer to the indeterminate future. I mean, it's like, so no endpoint in sight is what is, the kind of the idea. So when it says forts and towers shall be dens forever, it's like that you're not getting your life back. Now they say, I want to get our freedoms back. You're not getting your freedoms back. You must take them back. They're not going to hand them back to you. Are you kidding? You give them your freedoms, and you think those people will hand them back? Those people are evil. And they're not interested in giving your freedoms back or anything. Like I said, we have a lawless president. He said it himself. We know this is illegal. But we did what we can, as long as our heart's on the right place, it doesn't matter what we do is illegal. I mean, it turns, like hijack a Walmart truck and distribute all the goods to the poor. I mean, it's like, there you go. Your heart's that must be good. That's the lawless good we're looking for, right? And how many trucks do you think there'll be after a while? You know what I mean? Think those trucks just magically appear, they spawn out of a spawner like in a video game or something? Like there's an infinite number of trucks of goods that can just be destroyed or violated, hijacked? Sorry. They shall be dens forever until the Spirit be poured upon us from on high, and the wilderness be a fruitful field, and the fruitful field be counted for a forest, till things get turned around, till the Lord comes and establishes his kingdoms. Every mountain and hill shall be brought low, and every valley shall be exalted. There's a lot of this terminology of reversal of fortunes, even in when Jesus talks about like Lazarus and the rich man, and here he was. He suffered in life, but you had ease in life. That's the thing, is that the people living easy look at people who are not, and what do they think? I don't know. A lot of times it's hard because it's like, I may be living a good life, but it's like to figure out how to sacrifice to get where I'm living a truly spare life, where I'm stripped down to where I'm not wasting. It's like, okay, so now the pennies I have left over, I'll use to help people even poorer than myself. And it's like, and I don't say that in jest. It's like, I would rather be like that. I would rather, I do think that, like, I could do better, I could do better. Even though I'm, not a wealthy person, I would like to do better because I would like to show them up. You know what I mean? As often the case, as much as they make fun of Mississippi, it is routinely the largest charitable giving state. I don't know if it's because of the great poverty or just, is it because the poor people give so much, or is it because the presence of the poor in their state causes people to be more generous? I don't think so. Actually, I do think it is that a lot, not poor people exactly, because American poor are a little richer than most, but there's a lot of charitable giving among people who don't have as much. I think they said that's just a statistical fact. Rich people donate less as a proportion of their income. They do. They donate less because that's what riches does to you. It makes you feel like the more money you have does not make you more generous necessarily. It makes you very often that it's inevitable, but there's tremendous money does that to you. There's a pressure on you, a temptation to be a miser, to hold on tightly. When the Spirit is poured upon us from on high. It's one of the things. It shall come to pass in the last days that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh. Actually, that's afterward in that passage, which is Joel 3. It shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh. And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. It might actually be Joel 2, but I put it as chapter 3. And your young men shall dream dreams. Your old men shall have visions. Also upon the servants, upon the handmaids, will I pour out my spirit in those days. From the prophet Joel. And this is a similar thought. That when God pours out his spirit on the people generally, because that's what they're talking about. Because, and I've said this a long time, and I think this is important. When I received the Holy Spirit, I received it with power, and because I think, and it was important because it really convinced me. It sort of removed any thoughts I ever had that maybe there is no God. Like, am I really gonna? Do I really believe? Any questioning on that level disappeared after that day for me. Not a big deal really, because a lot of people have that kind of faith anyways. You don't have to have a weird experience. But the thing is, from the book of Revelation, it talks about the seven churches and to the angels of the seven churches. And in chapters 1, it had said, the seven stars are the angels of the churches. And then the letters go out to the angels of these churches. But the candlesticks are the churches. And throughout history, one of the things I remember that when I was learning history in college, in the period after that, I started hearing people talk about how the idea of great man history being sort of on the outs, where history is sort of ends up focusing around certain key figures as the instrumental figures of their times. When the truth is, a lot of these people are just caught up in their times and they are not as huge and looming as they seem. But whether or not that's the case is not as important as the fact that problem goes back to the days of Moses, when God descended on the mountain with smoke and fire, and the people were afraid, and they did not want God to speak with them, but they rather wanted to send Moses. Moses, we do not want God to speak to us anymore. You go up into the mountain and talk to the Lord. And to this day, there is that spirit where it's like, you go and find out. Go to school, young man, and become our pastor. And you tell us what God thinks. Right? You are the one who is especially spiritually enlightened. Because we have sent you to the school of spiritual enlightenment, where they teach you all the right doctrines, 100%. And then you come to the church of that denomination, whatever it happens to be. Of course, there's maybe some differences, but they're all okay. So you come and then you teach. You teach us all, and you'll be our star. You'll be our. And the church is made up of these, like, the visible church in the world. Mostly, what people see are these stars. Oh, Pat Robertson, a Christian celebrity, and then you have. This is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it's, their names. Kenneth Copeland, Benny Hinn, the stars of Christianity, right? Doesn't everybody love Benny Hinn, Pat Robertson, Kenneth Copeland? I was going to say, I couldn't remember his first name. Hagee? Never liked Hagee. Blustering bag of whatever wind. But you know what, that's the thing, is they want that. But you know what, the Bible prophesies differently, that in the last days God would pour out his spirit on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters would prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams. We're not going to depend on these superstars, because they're going to lead you astray, just like of old. Just like the leaders of the country are leading the country astray, the men of God are going to lead you astray too. In the pandemic, I don't know what the extent was, but I saw shut down churches everywhere. All those pastors are a disgrace. They are. For the first 2 weeks, fine. 3 weeks maybe, 4. But people who are still closing their doors, you deserve to lose your church. You deserve to lose your congregation. I hope you do. I hope the congregation never comes back. It makes you think of that prophet, and that my people will no longer be in your hand to be hunted. Because that's all they are now. They're, Jesus said to Peter, I'll make you a fisher of men, but they've taken that a little bit too far. That's all they care about is bringing in the harvest. Oh, the harvest of souls, the harvest of souls. That's why I was very, you can interpret this whole thing in a spiritual sense. I used to be much more of that mindset. Like I would look at these women as sort of like stand-ins for Babylon. Except not the big Babylon, but they're like the lower, not lower, but like, if Mystery Babylon is this personification of this apostate church, then it's made of a bunch of individuals. And these women that are at ease, to me, are part of that. And no doubt it is true, because that is part of what, they all slumbered and slept. Like when he talks about the 10 virgins. But the promise of God for the end times is not that, I'm going to send a couple of superstars and they're going to save you. They're going to be the ones to lead you through. But rather that he would pour out his Spirit generally on his people. And he would distribute this. And that's why I think the two witnesses, it's clear, symbolically, are the two candlesticks, which are the two churches. That means that they are also symbolic representations. The two witnesses are not two actual individual human beings, but they are symbolic human beings, much like the woman of chapter 12, much like the woman of chapter 17, the great whore. Much like that. I mean, obviously in the opposite, but we have the great whore, we have the woman and the dragon, we have the other symbolic things. The beast, you're representing a system of government or an individual. It's both things in some context, it seems. But those two witnesses are symbolic representations of all of God's people upon whom the Spirit has been poured generally. And this, and it's not the state. The state of things that have been will be over once God has poured out his Spirit on his people. And not just like when I received the Holy Spirit. That's one thing. It's one thing to receive the gift of the Holy Spirit as promised in the New Testament, the Comforter and all that, and it has been in my life ever since. With me in a special way. He was with me before and for me, but now he is with me in a new and different way. The specifics of which are not entirely even known to me. It's like because his workings are mysterious on some level to me because I do not read his mind. He is reading my mind and helping me think. But the day I received it, there was this powerful effect. Well, that effect stopped. That power, that moment of powerful effect, it's like in the revelation of God being real there at that moment, like, wow, he has answered my prayer. I called on Jesus and he sent his power. He sent his Spirit in power. Right? So that moment, the Spirit was poured out. It was actually being poured out. It was, literally, I had it. I was receiving it at that moment, and there was a powerful effect. Well, that can be, God can sort of bring that power back and bring a new level of revelation and power to us. Like we know so much, we have, we know in part, we see in part, we have in part, but then we will know everything. Well, but also a greater chunk of whatever understanding, wisdom, power, might, the will to do right, all those things that we need. He can up the level by pouring out his Spirit more than he has. He can give us of his Spirit a greater portion than we've had. He can magnify the Spirit that is within us already. Magnify himself within us so that he is more, releasing more of his power to us. That's the idea of the Spirit being poured out. You may have received the Holy Spirit, but there are moments when it gets poured out. And the Spirit is overflowing and abundant. And many of us, of course, have encountered those moments, Maybe not a ton. But, but some. And that is something predicted in the end times. That, God's people are not going to take it lying down. That's why you'll know it's the Antichrist, because I won't bow my knees to him. And if I'm bowing my knees, there are other people who are not, if it's Antichrist. Don't just count on me, maybe I'll fail you. Because God can put people in such positions. The men, the men in charge. When people see people like Pat Robertson and Kenneth Copeland and whatever bowing down before Satan, if they should do so, when they see that, they don't really, that's going to be powerful. They'll say, well, all the Christian leaders are blah, blah, blah. And who are you? You're no star. You're just a stupid candlestick that holds the light up. Not an actual star. The angel of the church. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying that the two witnesses are not the two stars. They are the two candlesticks. And that symbology is settled in the context of Revelation. If you can't follow it, there's very little you're going to be able to learn from the scripture. To truly learn. Like, if that can't be followed, it's almost to me like, it seems, you could just say, I don't agree, but I follow it. That's good enough. You don't have to agree, but you can say, I follow your argument. Because it's very, maybe not in this context. Go to Revelation chapter 1, Just look up candlesticks in Revelation. Just compare chapter 1 to chapter 11. Tell me what you think. You just need the last couple of verses of chapter 1. And then read 11. The first half, basically. Okay. So the pouring out of the Spirit is a prelude also to the kingdom of God coming. So that's why it's until then. Until God pours out his Spirit and changes the hearts of the people so that they could receive this kingdom. And things can be turned around. Then shall judgment dwell in the wilderness. What had been a wild place, we'll look it up because I think that's probably right. That, I don't want to overemphasize the idea of permanence with that, because it does, because the idea is that when God's kingdom is restored, you want it to be forever. And certainly when it was restored after the Babylonian captivity, that temple was also destroyed later. Nehemiah's temple. Or Herod's temple, as they called it, even. Because of the repairs he did. Because he expanded it. The work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness quietness and assurance forever. When righteousness does its work, it brings peace. Because, it's like Sam Clemens said, I couldn't remember, Mark Twain. The good thing about telling the truth is you never have to remember what you said. He said something like that. And I like that because when you do the right thing, things are simpler. And you're not so troubled. You know what I mean? Doing right is just that much more of a relief. It gives you true peace as opposed to ease. Because doing the wrong things and being sinful may bring about ease and carelessness. You know what I mean? We can have those, but righteousness can bring peace, which is better. Peace comes not from just being ignorant of troubles around you, but truly being to know. It is a combination of to be in the midst of things that are troubling, but to not be troubled. And the effect of righteousness, quietness, and assurance forever. I want to look at the shock, security, righteousness, effect. Effect is like work. It's a word that means aboda, which is labor. Okay. I'm going to leave that there, but we're going to remain real quick. Remain. Yashab, to sit or dwell. Remain. It will sit there. It means it's going to stay. But it's not implying like before when it left. There was, but whatever. The point is that the righteousness will come there to stay, make its home there. It'll be part of the place. And meaning the people that dwell there will dwell there in righteousness. So, work of righteousness. I meant to actually just show you those, but there's nothing particularly notable about Shakat. To be quiet or undisturbed. That's weird. They've rearranged the way these are set up because I think they put the strongs at the top. Wait, it's missing. Oh, there it is. Appease idleness to be at, give quietness to be at, be. Huh. I want to see. I hope I didn't make a little mistake here in ease. Okay. Careless is interesting because this is the word definition security, betach. That's assurance that we have there. Batach, I don't know if they're even, are they related? It means to trust. Careless. To be bold, confident, secure, sure, careless, one put a primitive verb properly to hie for refuge, but not so appropriately to trust or be confident. It means trusting here is in the sense of confidence. I'm just going with the way I've been doing it, like without a care. It's fine. They take confidence, but not in the Lord, is the point. They trust in chariots because they are strong and horsemen because they are mighty, but the Lord shall destroy them all, so what's the point? My people shall dwell in a peaceable habitation and in sure dwellings and in quiet resting places. So, I don't like I said, we'll have assurance. What was assurance? I'm sorry. Bitak, it means security. Okay, fine. And properly a place of refuge, abstract safety, both in fact. They're very similar words, batak and betak, which is interesting. And I think that's a play on that because they're close sounding. There's like the idea of true faith and false faith. Faith in, they put trust in things that shouldn't be trusted versus truly trusting in the Lord and putting our faith in Him. So it's like a similar idea. They're trusting, but not of God. They're faithful, but not to Him. They're faithful to their ease. What can I do to preserve my ease? They're faithful to their lusts, the things that they desire. But in God's kingdom, we will have the security. They see themselves secure. People always are looking for security, right? I will build bigger barns so I'll be provided for forever. We want to be secure. We want to feel like we're protected. And so we trust in things. But the number one thing we need to trust is the Lord. And to trust in Him, we have to know Him. To say you trust God, just like a lot of times that means I just assume if I do nothing, everything will be fine. Because there's no real substance. Like your trust of God is not substantial in that case. It's just a question. I'm just not going to worry about things I'm ignorant about. But to understand and know the Lord, that He is the one who executes these things, is so very important. My people shall dwell in a peaceable habitation, in sure dwellings, and in quiet resting places. The cities and towns are going to be destroyed. But He will restore. He will bring forth judgment and righteousness. The work of righteousness shall come, and the people will dwell peaceably again. All right, we're going to end there because we're just going to pick up verse 19 tomorrow. Because just as a way of conclusion, this Bible study got started late. I was having trouble with the streaming, and I don't want to go over even a second. So thanks for joining me. We'll pick up at verse 19 tomorrow, and hopefully have a nice full week of studies. Until then.
I am sought of them that ask not for me. I am found of them that sought me not. I said, behold me, unto a nation that was not called by my name. I have spread out my hands all the day to a rebellious people, which walked in a way that was not good after their own thoughts, of people that provoked me to anger continually to my face, that sacrifice in God hymns and burn eat swine's flesh and the broth of abominations is in their vessels, which say, stand by thyself, come not near to me.